On this episode of Where's the Line, it's time. Schedule prediction time for the Where's the Line boys. Don't forget video podcast on Spotify. Also, new YouTube channel, Where's the Line on YouTube. Without further ado, let's get into it. This is episode number 91.
You are now listening to the Where's the Line podcast with Joseph West and Britt Dillard. Enjoy the show.
Another edition of Where's the Line. It is Monday, August 14th, episode number 91. My name is Britt Dillard. I'm joined here by Joseph West. How are you today, brother?
Britt, I'm doing amazing. I'm doing great. I'm ecstatic. I'm electric. I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm ecstatic. I'm electric. I'm alive. I'm here.
Let's go.
I was off work today. I got my hair cut today. I got to eat lunch with my best friend today,
Me
Joseph,
too.
and my
I
other
got to eat
best
lunch with Britt.
friend celebrate his birthday.
Happy
it's been
birthday,
a great
Donald.
it's been a great day today. I worked on the
Super
YouTube
fan
channel
Donald.
today. You guys,
That's
okay, let
right.
me talk.
I'm sorry.
Go.
I'm sorry. I'm getting high.
Okay, go to the Where's the Line on YouTube. You'll find our first video podcast, episode 88, is up as
Very
of
true.
about an hour ago. So go check that out. We're gonna be posting those as they happen. So
Shout out Britt. Britt is the one who uploaded the video. I just want to give him all the credit. Shout out to the greater half most of the time of the Where's the Line podcast here. Britt, thank you for doing that, not only for me, but for the people. And that's what matters. Listen, we are 12 days away from Vanderbilt's football game as of right now. And it feels like it's 2 days, and it also feels like it's 100. And I couldn't be more excited for football. I can't remember the last time I was this excited for a season, for Vanderbilt season.
yeah,
I'm
you
usually
have
all
it.
about the Raiders, and I'm excited about them too, but come on. Let's go college football this year. Everybody knows I'm the NFL guy. We've debated that on this podcast, right, Britt? I've talked
Mhm.
about how NFL is the better product. And while it may still be the better product, let me tell you right now, this college football season, I just got this buzz in my chest. Like it's like I'm about to have a heart attack. I mean, it's just here. And maybe I do have a heart attack. I don't know. But I'm just telling you right now that I'm so excited for the season.
Yeah, you generously extended the offer to take me to the Hawaii Vanderbilt game
I did.
in First Bank Stadium, so I'm excited to go watch that and kick off the season. I'm fired up. I'm fired
I
up.
purchased 12 tickets to the Hawaii Vanderbilt game as of right now. They all have a name to the ticket as of now. And I just got hit up today by 2 other people saying, "Hey Joe, could you hook me up with some more tickets? Could you get me and my buddy a ticket?" I said, "Well, can you get 2 more?" They said, "Yeah, we could probably get 2 more." Cool. I bought 4 more. Make it 16. Make it 16. I'm filling up the stadium by myself. I don't even need nobody. Well, I do need other people, but I'm doing my part. I will say, can I say that? I'm just doing my part.
Will there be any other Tennessee Vols brethren with me at the game?
There will be a father and son, more than likely from our church that will also be there that are Tennessee fans. But like, so I think there is an interesting. We're gonna go off topic here for just a second, Brett. Not something that we plan to speak on here. But I think there's an interesting point that me and Brett have debated several times on this podcast that I would like to bring back up for a second, which is all Tennessee fans or most Tennessee fans do not hate Vanderbilt. I will say that I've seen more people on Twitter this week like talking about the stadium, and then like the comments will be UT fans like, "Oh, I hate Vanderbilt. I hate Vanderbilt." Like, "Oh, I hate them. They think they're too good, or they think this or that." They don't. Once again, the same thing I always say about Tennessee. Nobody hates Vanderbilt because we're good. Okay, that's just how it is. No one hates us because we're good. Let's just get that out of the way. Okay, but there are a lot of UT fans that hate Vanderbilt. However, the father and son that go to church with us, they do not hate Vanderbilt. They're not like they kind of have, I guess, mixed stuff on why they don't hate Vanderbilt. The son does, but the dad at least doesn't. So there it is. That's just what I wanted to say. Is that I think it
Yeah.
is possible that you don't hate Vanderbilt as a Tennessee fan, but I think most do, if that's fair. Not to put all
I,
UT fans in a box. I have before.
I think the majority of Tennessee fans, including myself, dislike Vanderbilt in baseball and basketball.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of indifferent in football.
And basketball makes sense. I mean, Vanderbilt up until recently was definitely better than Tennessee as a program, not counting women's, just men's basketball better as a program until the last
5,
what 8 years, 6, 7 years. Yeah, I'd even go maybe
something
a little
like
bit more
that.
than 5. But yeah, so there will be 2 other UT fans there. Everyone else comes a Vanderbilt fan, which is very good. Obviously, that's who I prefer to have. But somebody like Britt, as pretty much, if you want to come watch the first college football game of the year with me, I'm fine with it. Just don't wear Tennessee colors. Don't be that guy. I've always been a hater on if I'm going to a Titans game, like I went to 2 last year, I'm not wearing Raiders stuff. They're not unless they're playing the Raiders, because that just doesn't make any sense. To wear
Yeah.
a Raiders game to a Titans Texans or a Titans Cowboys game. That was 2 I went to last year. So moving on. Oh,
Well,
I'm sorry. Did you have something
I
to
was
say?
going to say
I
I
apologize.
even wore a Vanderbilt. I wore Vanderbilt 2 or 3 times with you. So
Yes, that is true.
I would like to take you to a game and maybe you could sing this song. I met somebody. He's got blue
Blue
eyes.
eyes. I'll sing that.
Maybe you can wear Tennessee orange for me.
I won't. I
Oh,
won't do that. But I will. I will show up and wear y'all are orange and white. I will show up and wear like a white t-shirt. And
you've done
I could
that.
at least,
No,
yeah,
actually, you showed up wearing a yellow shirt and pink pants. I'll never forget that.
I shorts. Pink shorts.
Okay, yeah.
I showed up to a UT football game. It's a true story. They were playing Mississippi State. I got invited by a good friend, Adam Brinkley, had invited me to the game with him, and I was in my frat boy era at the time. And I put on my Sperry's, no socks, of course, some pink shorts, and a yellow and pink shirt to get the fit going. And yes, I did. And then I also wore a white shirt one time. I sat in the white section um, on the checkerboard, and I wore a white shirt because I promised them that I would go with the theme as long as we
Yeah,
didn't sit in orange. I
yeah,
said
you
I
got
would
to.
not put on orange. So you better buy me a white seat because I will not put on orange. But I'm not a hypocrite. Okay, I go with what I say. So I never wear my team stuff if they're not playing. So I will say that.
Yeah. The only time I've ever wore Tennessee things to a Vanderbilt event is when we were endorsing for Butch Jones to get fired. That's
And we
the
got on
only time.
ESPN.
Yeah.
Me, Britt Dillard, and Hunter Davis got on ESPN with a Fire Butch Jones sign in the end zone at a Vanderbilt. I don't even remember who we were playing game.
Western
I don't even
Kentucky.
remember. Western Kentucky game. Yes. Okay. So that's done. Let's get into it, Britt.
Let's do it.
We've got a meaty episode here. Just a dive in. Let's get into it. Here's the meat on the bone. We
And
going.
taters.
Them taters, them meat. We're at a meat and 3 right now. Let's go. First things first, breakout player. We've talked about a stat prediction for AJ Swan, Joe Milton, talked about a stat prediction for Will Shepard. I believe Britt gave one for Mel Keaton, or no, Squirrel White. I apologize. Squirrel White. Talked about those, but we're going to talk about guys maybe that their names aren't as big. Yeah, a little squirrel. I like that. So let's start on defense. Probably the more side that people care less about defense. A forgotten thing these days in football. For me, um, breakout player is a guy that I think Vanderbilt fans know, but other guys don't. Kane Patterson, transfer from Clemson. Last year was his first year with the team. He has switched over to the other linebacker spot to fill Anthony Orgy's role. He is thriving in it from what I've seen, read from at camp. I haven't been to camp, but what I've read from the analysts and workers at camp, they said Kane's really going off in the role. He's thriving. It's really let him let loose. So he's just playing really well. So mine's going to be Kane Patterson on the defensive side. You will know his name in the SEC by the end of the season.
Okay. For me, defensively, and I mentioned this a few weeks ago, um, I think Elijah Herring's a guy that's going to step up at linebacker. We've seen film on him last year. He's a true freshman last year on special teams and in garbage time at linebacker, but just a solid player. He's really good. I want to be consistent and stick with that. I think Arian Carter's another linebacker. He is a true freshman this year that you could see step up. Just heard good things from both of those guys at camp. In a position that you'll see some rotation from at Tennessee. Kind of, you've got one starter locked in, and then one that's kind of assumed with Keenan Pili. But a lot of young guys in that linebacker room that have a lot of potential and could see some playing time this year. But
Right.
I'll go with Mr. Herring.
Okay, me and Brett both go with linebackers on defense. On offense, I'm going to go with another receiver. I picked Will Shepherd as my big stat guy. This guy came around late in the season last year. He hurt his hamstring in the Hawaii game and played hurt all year. Was able to get that fixed over the offseason, and he looks really good so far in fall camp. His name is Quincy Skinner. Quincy Skinner Jr. is going to have a big year. I think that if people give safety help to Will Shepherd over the top all the time, then they're going to have problems with Quincy. And if they don't, I dare you to try to guard Will Shepherd one-on-one. That I'll put it like that. So I think Quincy Skinner has a big year. I don't think many teams guard Will one-on-one. Quincy will get a lot of one-on-one options, and he's going to thrive in them. He'll be our deep threat. You're going to see some electric plays from Vanderbilt football this year, and I believe they'll be Quincy Skinner deep. So we'll see, but I'm picking Quincy Skinner Jr. For my Vanderbilt Commodores as the breakout player on the offense.
I really wanted to go with a wide receiver, but just with the way Tennessee's offense is, you don't really see subs on offense. You're going to see 4 receivers pretty much the bulk of the snaps this year. So I was going to go with Caleb Webb, but I'm going to kind of shift to a running back, Cam Seldon, a true freshman coming in. Another guy that you've heard a lot of good stuff about in camp. People are excited about him. I think Cam Seldon. I think he's a guy that there's nowhere for him right now, but he's so good that they're going to have to find some way to get him on the field.
Right.
He's just that good.
Okay. So Cam Seldon, was that correct? I did not know his name prior to 10 seconds ago. Cam Seldon and Quincy Skinner Jr. as our breakout players on offense. Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works.
Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup looks like, you can start creating today.
Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard.
Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And with Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions.
And best of all, it's totally free with no catch.
Ever since me and Joseph started this podcast, we chose Spotify for Podcasters. It's super easy. You don't have to know how to distribute it. You just simply edit it, upload it where you want it to go. You can edit it from the app if you want to, and then it's out. It's super easy, and me and Joseph are rich because of it. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Thank you for listening.
So there's the breakouts. Like I said, we're 3 weeks basically from Tennessee, 12 days at this point from Vanderbilt. We're here, which means there's one thing left to do before we get into the breakdown of the game next week, and that's our season predictions. These weren't great last year as far as where we ranked SEC teams, but the predictions for our individual teams were pretty good. I believe we both got Vanderbilt's win total correct, and we missed UT's by a game each. We both predicted 9-3 last year.
Yeah, I know I did 9-3. Yeah.
Okay, so they were pretty good, almost like our betting. We're pretty much just unstoppable, if you ask me. So, Britt, let's just start overview. Last year, Tennessee had the number 1 offense in the nation. Tennessee had the 91st ranked defense in the nation. For Vanderbilt, we had, and let me remind you, by the way, let me remind all the listeners. Okay, when I say the 91st ranked defense in FBS, that is terrible. That is horrible. Like absolutely horrendous, right? In FBS, there's only 131 teams. In the last place, just tell you who it was Southern Florida defensively, ranking 131st. 130th was Colorado, 129th was Georgia Southern, 128th was Charlotte. So like, just so you know, in case you don't, who's in FBS, those teams are FBS teams. Vanderbilt defensively was ranked 121 out of 131 teams in FBS. I
Pretty
just want
bad.
I just wanted everybody to think about that for a second. So
That's
that's
not
where we're
good.
starting. That's where we're starting. Um, Before we just get right into it, I'm just gonna read some stuff for Vanderbilt, and then I'm gonna let Britt go, and then we're gonna read some stuff about UT, and then we'll get into the actual reading of the schedule. So first of all, the defense feels much better for Vanderbilt this year, but out of 131 teams, when you're ranked in the bottom 10, it doesn't matter how the defense feels. You were a bottom 10 team in FBS last year. That's what matters. Okay, I'm gonna start out a little negative here. Vanderbilt does, though, have much better depth and plays a much lighter schedule this year than last year. Right, last year you had to play Ole Miss, who was ranked top 15 when you played them. You played a top 10 Tennessee team. You played Bama. You played Georgia. Your schedule wasn't kind. It just wasn't. Right, so you play a much lighter schedule. Here's what you don't do. You don't play Bryce Young, and you don't play Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman, who was an early Heisman contender last year before the season started, and he had a health problem. Before that, he was voted as a Heisman contender. Everybody was calling him a Heisman contender. And Bryce Young won the Heisman and was the first overall draft pick. When you don't play two elite quarterbacks, when you take two elite quarterbacks off who you're playing and throw in Hendon Hooker, I almost left him off. I didn't write him down, but throw him in too. Hendon Hooker, although he was a what round did he end up get drafted in? I didn't want to misquote there.
I think it was the fifth round.
The fifth? Okay. The fifth round, even though he did get drafted in the fifth round, he tore his ACL while, as Britt checks that, he tore his ACL, obviously, in the second to last game. And he's, people have questions about Heupel's system succeeding in the next level, which is a rightful question. But regardless, he was a great college quarterback. So it was the third round? Okay. The third round. So he got picked in the third round. Hendon Hooker was a great college quarterback regardless of where he got drafted. So take out not playing him, I think this favors Vanderbilt from last year. If the defense just improves 15 to 20% this year, you go from a bottom, depending on where you're looking at, by the way, some people had us as the 125th ranked defense. So 125th ranked defense in points per game. So there's only 6 teams worse than you. That's it. There's only 6. If you improve 20%, you go from a bottom 6 defense to inside the top 100, which once again is still horrendous. That's still terrible, but it's much less terrible than bottom 6. Okay, so that's just the way to put it. Lighter schedule. Vanderbilt improves the defense 15%. So I think that's my number, by the way. I do think we improve it by 15%. I think we, catch some dubs that maybe people aren't expecting, which I'll get into in a second. For some numbers on some other teams last year, just to throw these out. Arkansas was 101. Florida was 87th. I already said Tennessee was 91. So I think this gives Vanderbilt some hope, honestly. When you look around at what other SEC teams did last year, like Florida, they weren't even good. And they had the 87th ranked defense, but they still won some games. Arkansas, same thing with them at 101. They won some football games. So, I just wanted to get that out there so people understood my prediction, or maybe not even understand it, but they at least see where I'm coming from. You can't get any worse on defense. Like, yeah, you could say, well, you could go back those 6 spots, but you really can't. Okay, you really can't. So your defense can't get any worse, honestly, if you're Vanderbilt. It can only go up. So there's my point for that. So would you like to talk about Vanderbilt before I talk about Tennessee? That way I'm just not rambling about Tennessee too.
How about I talk about Tennessee and then you talk about Tennessee? I don't have anything to say about Vanderbilt.
Okay. So we'll both talk something. You go ahead with
just
Tennessee.
Being honest. Just being honest.
Okay.
Tennessee, like you said, had the best offense in the country last year. Defense was 91st, like you also said, last year. When you lose a Heisman finalist level quarterback, I know he didn't get there, but he probably would have got there had he not been injured.
He would have at least been top 2. For sure, 100%. Yeah. I fully believe. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
But when you lose a guy like that, you lose a Biletnikoff winner at wide receiver. You lose your right tackle, top 10 draft pick. You lose a guard in Jerome Carve, and you lose some key pieces of your offense. There's going to be some kind of regression. I'm not saying that it's going to be huge, but to expect this offense to be as good and to expect Joe Milton to be like Hendon Hooker is not realistic. Your offense is going to take a step back. Defensively, kind of in the same boat as Joseph is with Vanderbilt. If you're Tennessee, I don't think it can get much worse. I think that your roster, just looking strictly defensively, is a lot better this year. I think you eliminated some wild cards in your defense. Jeremy Banks comes to mind that weren't exactly solid on defense. I think your secondary, just having another year of work, they will improve. I think at defensive line and linebacker, you have a lot of young potential that could be very good this year. I'm excited about the defense this year, just on the record. So it's just kind of a combination of those two things. Where will Tennessee end up? And there's so many factors that could skew the record a few games
100%.
either way. So I've got my stuff. I feel good about it, but do you have stuff that you want to say?
Yeah, first of all, I definitely feel good about my stuff too. And honestly, even with me and Britt hitting as close as we did on both the schedule or on both the predictions last year, I mean, some luck was involved. I mean, me and Britt both predicted a Vanderbilt win for Wake Forest. They didn't get it. They beat Florida. And we didn't predict that, and nobody did. So looking at that, I just wanted to say that I mean, even if you're off a game or two worse this year, it's just you didn't get as lucky as you did last year, honestly. It always the great teams get lucky. Me and Britt talked about that over the phone the other day. They just like it's not saying any shame that there were some times that Tennessee got lucky last year. There were some times that Georgia got lucky last year. It has to happen when you're great. You have to have the luck fall your way. But the first thing I'll say is that I've said on this podcast in the offseason that Tennessee's offense regresses, kind of like what Britt was saying. I don't know how much. I question it. How many steps backwards is it? What is the gap from Joe Milton or from Hendon Hooker to Joe Milton like? So when Tennessee has the 91st ranked defense, I think they take a step forward. But just like on the offense, I don't know how much. I'll say the same thing about Tennessee that I say about Vanderbilt on defense, and that's that there's talent there, but it's unproven potential. That's all it is right now. It's just unproven potential. It's you hope they're what they say they are or what they recruited to be, but you don't know. So I don't know how much of a step forward they take, and then also playing into a factor of how UT runs their offense, which is quick, high-paced. Let's score the ball as fast as possible, which won them a lot of games last year, but also had their defense gassed a lot, where depth comes into play, which I think UT on defensively does have much better depth this year than last year because you got some true freshmen like Elijah Herring who will be stepping up. And like Carter is a true freshman, correct? No?
Carter.
Is it?
Oh, Arian Carter. Yes,
Yeah.
he's a true freshman.
He's a true freshman. So you've got him take some snaps to give you some time, even if he's not the starter, which I believe he is projected to be. And if he is, then you have a veteran guy coming in. I mean, you still got to feel pretty confident. So like I said, I don't know how far the step is for the defense. And then my only other worry, I guess, with Tennessee is that the offensive line, just with Joe Milton being unsettled, I guess, or maybe I'm uncertain of his abilities to command the offense on a consistent basis. If his offensive line is kind of raggedy early, or maybe they're figuring things out, can he stay in the pocket? Does he trust his O-line as the season progresses? So we'll see, but that's kind of the things that I would say about Tennessee early on. While I'm kind of uncertain, honestly, about my prediction for Tennessee this year.
Good work. Good stuff.
Thank you. You too. So let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. It's here. I'm going to start off. I'll tell you what. Pull up Vanderbilt's schedule, Britt. I'm going to read off Tennessee's. You pull up Vanderbilt's and read it off. Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna go Tennessee's first. Here I go. First game is gonna be September 2nd, Virginia at Tennessee. That game is going to be played at Nissan Stadium in Nashville. And then the next game is Austin Peay at Tennessee. That is in Knoxville. In week 3, Tennessee is going to travel to the Swamp. They play Florida away. That is a night game in the Swamp. Then they come back home, play UTSA. They get South Carolina at home. They get A&M at home. Then they go on the road to Tuscaloosa and play Alabama. They then go to Kroger Field and play Kentucky. They come back home and get Connecticut. Then they play Missouri at home. Then they play Georgia at home. Or I'm sorry, they play Missouri at Missouri. I apologize. And then they play Georgia at home. And then they play Vanderbilt at home. So there is their stretch of 12 games. Britt, Vanderbilt's.
Let me pull it up. Okay.
Okay, you didn't pull it up.
I had it pulled up. I didn't have the home and away. I didn't want to look not as prepared as you, but I have it here
Okay,
now.
got it. Go ahead.
Starting in week 0, 2 weeks from last Saturday, 12 weeks from today, 12 weeks, 12 days from today, 11 days from today if you're listening to this when you're supposed to, when it comes out.
Very true.
Hawaii at home. Your next game is against Alabama A&M on the 2nd of September. Then you've got at Wake Forest, at UNLV versus Kentucky in Nashville versus Missouri in Nashville, at the Swamp versus Georgia at First Bank Stadium, at the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss on the 28th of October, at home against Auburn, and then away against USC Junior and Tennessee.
Okay, it's laid out. The groundwork has been laid out. Britt, are we gonna go week for week? Going week for week here? One game at a time on both schedules, or are we just gonna focus on one?
Let's go week for week for Vanderbilt, and
Okay.
then, but first let's do our floor and our ceiling, and then when we go week for week, people will see our prediction.
Okay, got it. So I guess Vanderbilt's my team. I'll go first. Here's the floor. The floor is, to me, what the floor means when somebody says they're predicting the floor is that you predict some key injuries, bad luck, and all around, it just wasn't meant to be your year. That's what I think of when I think your floor. With that being said, I really wanted to say Vanderbilt's floor was 5-7. Although I think if you lose a guy like Will Shepherd, a game changer, who's really going to draw a lot of attention on offense. If you lose a guy like the commander of the defense and C.J. Taylor, I think that those are big losses. They're game changers on the football field. I think Vanderbilt's floor is 4-8. And I think that even if you lost to Wake Forest away, I think you find a way to win one SEC game. I mean, they won 2 last year, and I think this is a much better squad. So the floor here for me is 4-8.
Okay. I've got 3-9 for the floor.
And I expected that.
That's going 0-8 in conference and losing to Wake Forest. That's the floor. That's the worst possible scenario. Well, the worst possible scenario is 0-12. But this is you beating the 99.9% sure victories. You win those.
Okay, so 3-9 for Britt, 4-8 for me. Let's go to the ceiling. This is where I get hide. This is where I won't be able to.
Is the roof.
This is where I won't be able to stop smiling. This is not necessarily you win every game you play, but a lot of stuff goes right for you. I mean, it feels like fate, destiny is on your side. Guys are, for example, last year, LSU fumbling that opening kickoff. Oh, that was fate in just Tennessee's hands. They were just meant to win that football game. It just, like, Tennessee didn't really play a factor. Dude just fumbled. They recover. They run all over them. They just stomp on them. Put them in the ground in Baton Rouge. Okay? With that being said, I think Vanderbilt's ceiling is 8-4. I think that it makes me nauseous to say that we could go 8-4 because the last coach to do that is James Franklin, which we know. But it just, It's 8-4. I would love to say it's higher than that. I think there's only 2 unwinnable games on the schedule, but just 9-3 is just golly. But they have to take a step. I just don't think it's there. My ceiling's 8-4. I'll stop rambling.
The ceiling is the floor. No, that's not what he said. He said the ceiling is the roof.
The ceiling is the
That's what
roof.
Michael Jordan said. 9-3. That's the ceiling.
He did what I wanted to. He did what I wanted to, but I couldn't come on this podcast and do it. God, he did what I wanted to.
That's the ceiling, and that's me seeing. I think the 2 unwinnables you were saying are Georgia and Tennessee.
That is correct. That would be.
And then I think, and I looked at it as everything goes perfectly. I think the 3 games I was looking at were Kentucky, Missouri, and Florida.
Oh, okay. I was going to say,
and I think
your schedule prediction.
I gave them 2 of those.
Okay.
2 out of 3 of those.
Got it. Respectable.
Yeah.
So we're just to make sure we're diving into Vanderbilt season, right? Starting right here. We're gonna go game for game. All right, week 1, August 26th, 6:30. Britt and Joseph under the lights in First Bank Stadium. Vanderbilt wins this game. I think we already know. We win this game. We beat them by 56 last year. We win.
Win.
2 wins. Week 2, we play Alabama A&M. Or sorry, week 1 for most people. Our second game, we play Alabama A&M at home. Once again, win. Both got 2-0. Wake Forest. Now, I think this is where I'm going to start trying to explain why I say what I say. Wake Forest, once again, they don't have Sam Hartman. They lost A.T. Perry to the NFL. I think they got worse. Vanderbilt got better. And even with it being away, we're not one-dimensional like we were last year when we played them because Mike Wright didn't have an arm to stretch the field. You do have a quarterback who can stretch the field this year. I think we beat Wake Forest away. 3-0.
Win.
3-0. Vanderbilt's 3-0. What a world we're going to live in. Then we travel to UNLV. Matter of fact, just to get this in here, I will be at all 4 of these games. UNLV, I'll be in Vegas. Win. I don't think UNLV is going to be very good. Like I said, I think Vanderbilt's taking steps forward, so 4-0. In a rout, too.
Win.
4-0. We got 2 4-0s. Okay. We come home. We're 4-0. It's the Ray Davis revenge game. He's been talking wet on Nashville. CJ Taylor's mad about it. I didn't predict this game as a win a month ago. I do now. Give it to me. Vanderbilt starts off 5-0 for the first time since 2008. So Vanderbilt starts off 5-0. Give me the win against Kentucky. Don't do it to me, Brett.
Win.
Vanderbilt is 5-0. Golly, what a world. I'm smiling because there's a lot of ways when you're a Vanderbilt fan, you know you can lose these games. I've seen it time after time. But I truly believe this team can be 5-0. So, golly, next game, we stay at home. We play Missouri. This game is so tough for me to predict because I'm so high on Missouri, yet so uncertain of Missouri, of their offensive capabilities. We almost had them away last year.
Yeah.
Win. Vanderbilt 6-0.
I've got a loss here.
I got to. Vanderbilt 6-0.
I've got 5-1. I got a loss.
Okay.
There.
I will say this. The next game is Florida. And if I didn't give us a win at home against Missouri, I would give us this win. But because I did, I'm giving us the loss. Vanderbilt loses their first game of the season in Gainesville. We're 6-1.
I've got a win in Gainesville.
Okay. Britt's got the win. So we're back at the same record. We're both 6-1.
6-1.
Okay. Then Georgia comes to town. I think we know. I called this game unwinnable. They're stacked. Back-to-back national champs. Vanderbilt's just not there yet. Let's be honest here. Vanderbilt probably gets routed. Vanderbilt 6-2.
Yeah, 6-2. Loss.
So as I was talking about all of that, I have quoted obviously all these games off the top of my head. As much as I've looked at Vanderbilt's schedule, I should be able to. For some reason, I have forgotten the next game. I think it's Ole Miss. Yes, it is Ole Miss. So Vanderbilt, this is important by the way. Vanderbilt comes off a bye um, after Georgia, probably getting the life beat out of them, and we play Ole Miss.
Can I just say something real quick?
Of course.
At 6-1 against Florida or against Georgia, pardon me, Vanderbilt's probably 18th in the country.
Probably. Vanderbilt's ranked for the first time since Franklin.
Going into Florida or
Yeah.
Georgia. Damn. Georgia.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't say this, and neither did Britt. Neither one of us predicted this, but there's a world I see Vanderbilt being 7-0. It's a perfect one, but it's a world. Regardless, I won't stick on that for too long. It's a world. It's just a perfect one. So then we get a bye week and we play Ole Miss. We do go between the hedges, which I'm not certain of. And so I did give Vanderbilt a loss here too. But I do love getting the bye when you're playing a better team in Ole Miss, but I just don't know. I think the gap's smaller from Ole Miss than it is like Tennessee. So I think I like it. I think this is a semi-close game, maybe a 10-point game here. But I like Ole Miss winning this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. 6-3.
6-3. Vanderbilt comes back home. We get Auburn, who was the worst team in the West last year, I think. I said that off the top of my head. I believe they were. I think Auburn is going to be really bad this year. Me and Britt have a different opinion on Auburn if you listen to a few podcasts back. While I do think Hugh Freeze is a really good football coach, although I don't like him, I think he's a good coach. But their roster's just not good, and you can only do so much with a bad roster. And so I got Vanderbilt winning this game. We're 7-3.
Yeah, I've got Auburn winning this one. I think they finished top half of the West this year. It's on the board.
He has said that. It is a board bet.
So 6-4.
6-4. We then travel to a stadium me and Britt have been to together. They are going to Bryce Williams Stadium in South Carolina. And this is where Vanderbilt, for me, takes their fourth loss of the season to be 7-4. We lose in South Carolina.
Yeah, I've got a loss there. 6-5.
Okay, 6-5. And then we go to Knoxville and play Tennessee. I've called this game unwinnable throughout most of the offseason. I still think it probably is, but I am eager to see UT play Florida before I say 100% a loss. Like right now, I'm saying the odds are definitely against you. It's 90% for Tennessee and probably 95 or 9 against Georgia. But this game's not totally unwinnable, but we saw the results last year. I still don't think it's necessarily a close game. UT wins this one pretty easily. I got Vanderbilt going 7-5.
Yeah, I've got 6-6.
So Britt obviously has us losing to Tennessee. Look, if Vanderbilt goes 6-6, wins their bowl, they'll have the first winning season since James Franklin. I don't really think you can be mad at that. Although my goal is higher. It just is. I mean, I'll look at this schedule. I see it's favorable to us. I look at next year's schedule. I'm saying, look, if you want to take the step to being maybe a blue blood is not the right word here. But if you want to be a competitive, relevant college football team that people aren't saying, oh, Vanderbilt, this is a dub. If you want to erase that, you got to win 7 games this year. And man, I hope Clark and the boys do it. I can't contain the excitement that I have for the season. 7-5 for me, 6-6 for Britt Dillard. Britt, if you were a Vanderbilt fan sitting in my shoes and Vanderbilt goes 6-6, how do you feel? From where we've been specifically in the last couple of years. We'll say from Derek Mason's last year winning no games to Clark Lee's first year, you lose to ETSU and you go 5-7 last year.
Well, the line graph is still linear. It's still going up. I think that's how I would look at it. It's definitely a positive. And then you've got to look. I mean, AJ Swan's going to be going into his junior year. You're going to lose some pieces. You're going to lose Will Shepherd to the draft, presumably. But you're still going to have young guys there that have kind of that have seen progress. And I
Yes.
think that's a big part that gets overlooked is there's guys that are positive that they have seen 3 wins and then they've seen 6 or 7 wins. Um, and they've got that the difference in morale for those two. Having that is a pretty big deal. So
Yeah.
not where you want to be quite yet, but not completely embarrassing anymore.
Agreed. I think that a big part of what Vanderbilt's done is when you look at some of the guys they've recruited guys like Junior Sherrill, who was at Lipscomb, won a state championship. They've recruited winners, guys who know how to win, guys who have played good competition and won. And I think that matters. And so I do like the future. But yeah, I mean, like Britt said, I don't think you're upset, but I think at 7-5, Britt, what about at 7-5? Are you thrilled? Are you blown away? Because I am. I mean, me personally, I'm blown away at 7-5.
Yeah. 7-5, you win probably 3 games that you're not supposed to. And I think you're really proud to be a part of that. If you're a junior this year, I mean, you lose to ETSU, and then now you see you win 7 games,
Yeah,
get to go to getting to go to a bowl game, and it not that that's crazy awesome, but to for the players themselves to go experience that and just have a taste of that, seven and
I
five would be
agree.
awesome.
I agree. I think 7-5 would be monumental for the program, for the guys. And Vanderbilt's over under win is 3.5. So if Vanderbilt wins 7 games, they really win 4 games. They're not supposed to. Britt said 3, but really and truly, they're going to be an underdog on the road against Wake Forest too. So if they win that one, then you've won 4 games that you're not supposed to if you win 7. So yeah, this Vanderbilt team, I think I have a lot of hope. I don't know if when the last time I had this amount of hope. Maybe last year after we beat Florida, going into the UT game, I would say I had a lot of hope, even though knowing we were one dimensional and matched up so bad, the hope was still there. So Vanderbilt, yeah, I think we're the future is as bright as it has been ever. So I will leave all my prediction at that. Moving over to Tennessee. Uh, Tennessee coming off their best season that I can remember in my life. I'll put it that way. Not necessarily the best in my lifetime, but the best that I can remember. And so it's hard to temper your expectations when you're coming off the best season that you've had. Like, in Britt's life that he's remembered, or guys a few years younger than us for sure, and even, maybe guys 1 or 2 years older than us too. You've seen, like I said, your best season in your life and a chance to go to the playoff if things go right for you there at the end. So with all that being said, Britt, read off that schedule if you have it pulled up.
Virginia, Austin P, Florida, UTSA.
Going
You said to read off the
fast.
schedule. I was just going to
Oh
go
no,
with it.
I'm sorry. I meant one game at a time. I meant start reading one game at a time. I
Well,
apologize.
okay, forget it. We got to do Florence Sealand.
Oh yeah, my bad. I'm
This
skipping that. I apologize.
the floor for Tennessee this year, and this is like it crap goes down.
Yeah.
This is like Gaston Moore as your starting quarterback
Oh,
for most of the year. This is like DEFCON, whatever. The floor is 7-5 for Tennessee. The floor is 7-5.
I said the exact same thing. The floor is 7-5 for Tennessee. Um, they could drop 5 games if the injury bug hits. Joe Milton goes down, a number one receiver goes down, your speedster like Squirrel White goes down. You have a few injuries on a defense, like I said, that I think takes a step forward, but has unproven talent. You'd be expecting freshmen to play at an unreal level, or even redshirt freshmen at an unreal level. I don't know how realistic that is. So I said the same thing. Just for the record, to say that um, Tennessee does play at the Swamp, Georgia, Missouri, A&M, South Carolina, and Bama. So I mean, that's listing off those games. That's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 games right there that I think are losable games, especially if your team's beaten up and battered. So once again, my floor 7-5, just like Britt.
The ceiling for Tennessee is 12-0. Everything goes right. if everything goes right, Joe Milton could win the Heisman. Joe Milton could either win the Heisman or be benched by the third week. And that's just and I heard Josh Pate said it like this. I was listening to him today. He said
I like Josh Pate for the record.
he imagines like 100 different simulations of the season, and you pick one out of the bag. One could be there's going to be some 7-5s. There's going to be some 12-0s. Maybe one 12-0 out of 100. But that's the ceiling, at least in my opinion. But what you're going to see most of are in between those two, for sure. So, do I think Tennessee is going 12-0? No, I don't. I think there's maybe a 1 in 100 chance Tennessee goes 12-0. Yes.
For the record, here as my air conditioning comes on, Britt, can you hear that? I do apologize if you can. No,
I cannot.
Okay.
Be cool, my friend.
Yeah, I apologize. But anyways, the point is here for me is that first of all, I was shocked by the floor call or by the ceiling call for Vanderbilt. I was equally shocked for the floor call. I'm sorry, for the ceiling call for Tennessee. I did not see Britt saying 12-0. I thought he was going to say 11-1 for the record. I have Tennessee at 10-2 as the ceiling. Here is why for me. I think that even if everything presumably goes right for Tennessee, that you're facing a Bama team in Bama, which I don't like at all. Because no matter how good Tennessee is, that rivalry in Bama, I just don't love. And then Georgia, I think, is still just a step or two above Tennessee, and I just don't think they can beat them. They could prove me wrong. So I'm not saying it's necessarily impossible. The odds aren't likely. And I think that it's 98% chance Georgia still wins that game. So with that being said, I don't think this is me hating it all, but it's 10-2. I was very intrigued to say 11-1 and just have that loss against Georgia and say screw Bama, especially with the quarterback woes that I think they may have. But for now, I'm saying the ceiling is 10-2 for the Tennessee Vols.
Just kind of adding, I think the Georgia game this year could be more winnable than the Alabama game. I know both of them have new quarterbacks. Georgia is at home. I think that game's winnable. I just think it is. Now, winnable maybe 1 in 6 times. I think Tennessee could win that game. But I mean, Tennessee beat Alabama last year with Bryce Young's best performance of the year. Alabama no longer scares me. They just don't.
Yeah.
And if that game was at home, I would pick a win every single time.
If that game's at home, I'd give Tennessee the win this year too. I agree. Yeah. I mean, I think we're actually on the same wavelength, although it's a little different. But let's go. All right. First game.
Let's get into it. Week 1 in Nashville against Virginia. I've got to win.
I got to win as well. UT's 1-0.
Week 2, Austin Peay in Knoxville. It's a night game. I've got to win.
I got to win as well.
Week 3 at the Swamp. The most important game to this point. I think Tennessee wins in the Swamp. I think Graham Mertz is not very good. And that's my main reason there. I also think Tennessee is going to travel pretty well to the Swamp this year. So I've got 3-0.
I'm not mad at what Britt said at all, nor do I disagree. I also have Tennessee as a win in the Swamp. But I went back kind of with Britt's own logic a second ago. With he's no longer scared of Bama. They beat Bama, maybe not necessarily at their best, but with a Heisman winner. And Tennessee, I can't even tell you the last year they won in the Swamp. I think we looked that up maybe a few podcasts ago. It was like 2005.
It's been 20 years.
Yeah. And so this game, to me, I went back and forth, but ultimately I just think Tennessee's the way better team. And although the rivalry and the history may say Florida winning in the swamp, I just can't see it. I got Tennessee winning this game. Tennessee's 3-0.
Okay, we're 3-0 at home against UTSA, a team that won 10 games last year. They'll probably be ranked this year when we play them. I've got a win against UTSA.
I also have a win. 4-0.
Okay, week 5 against South Carolina at home. A lot of people have the Georgia game circled as the biggest home game. I think this South Carolina game is bigger. I think Tennessee fans have a stronger hatred for South Carolina, just their overall behavior. It's time to put them back in their place as SEC East trash with Missouri and Kentucky. I'm going to spare the shot at Vanderbilt. There's a win there. 5-0.
I wrestled with this game, but I used this once again. I'm a lot of things a hypocrite. I do my best not to be. I use the same logic I do here that I did in the Vanderbilt Kentucky game. Revenge. And as much as people want to say it doesn't matter, it does. Tennessee's got a sour taste in their mouth from this team. They go in there, they don't just beat South Carolina, they stomp them to the ground. Mark it down. They stomp them to the ground. Can I hop up UT fans for a second? You're going to stomp them. Okay? You're going to put Shane Beamer and Spencer Rattler. Last year I said you got bit by the Rattler. You did. But this year you're shooting them with a shotgun.
We got the anti-venom.
Yeah, y'all got that anti-venom out there in Knoxville. I was going to say y'all got the hillbilly shotguns, but the anti-venom works too. UT's 5-0.
Okay. Week 6, you've got Texas A&M at home. You look ahead at Alabama, you lose against Texas A&M.
You lose. Okay.
You lose.
I got you.
I'll provide more explanation after we're done.
And I'm fine with you saying that. I think we look at the schedule, and I think we break down schedules in the same way, just maybe in a different point of view. This is a win. Tennessee beats Texas A&M. It's in Knoxville. I hate Neyland, but they're loud. They're rowdy. All the things I hate about Tennessee also, to a degree, make them good as fans. Like all the things that I say annoy me as fans, to an extent, when they get inside Neyland Stadium, also make them great. So I love them. I love them in this game. I think although A&M's a much better team, I don't think they lose here. And
I wouldn't say that.
What'd you say?
I don't think A&M's a much better team.
Well, maybe I misquoted. Let me back up for a second. Maybe a better talented team based off recruiting boards. Can I say that? They have a better overall ranking than Tennessee, a better composite score. That's the better way to put it. They have a better composite score than Tennessee by the numbers. Not saying
I don't know if they would.
I will look that up as we continue because I can pull up the composite here. But I will say this. By my prediction so far, you would be looking at Tennessee and Vanderbilt both being 6-0 at a point in the season, and that, my friends, would be amazing. Whether you hate Tennessee like I do, or whether you're a Tennessee fan and hate Vanderbilt like I think you should, that would be crazy to see at the top of the East. Vanderbilt 6-0, Tennessee 6-0. Golly, I'm smiling thinking about it. I hate Tennessee, but it'd be cool. Me and Britt have talked about that. Cool. It'd be awesome. So
there'd be graphics like State of Tennessee.
Oh,
it's going off this year.
It'd be over. But Britt, explain. You said A&M was a loss. While I look at the composite score, go ahead. Why do you think?
Well, I think A&M. I don't. Okay, it's honesty time. I really don't think Tennessee loses to A&M. I just didn't want to use that loss. What I did was I picked what my final prediction would be, and then I went through and said, which of these games are we going to lose? And I was not willing to put a loss against USC Junior or Florida or other teams. So I think this one was fitting for the loss. Okay. I'm banking more on my final prediction being correct.
Got it. Okay. For the record, 247 composite. This is total. This is total college football team talent composite. This is overall start to bottom, or sorry, bottom to top. And this is last year's because this year's you don't know yet by like total. Last year, A&M was number 4 with talent composite overall on their team. And UT was, let me go here, 19. I think that number will be closer, but I do still think that gives the edge. So that's what I meant by Tennessee, or A&M has the more talented team. Like I said, recruiting doesn't always mean at the end of the day that those players are actually going to be better. I think we've seen that throughout time. But that's what I meant.
Okay, moving on. I'm at 5-1. You're at 6-0 against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. I think you lose this game to Alabama.
I also think you lose this game to Alabama. But I will agree with you here, Britt, which I don't know if that happens a lot. Maybe more than we would like to think. I think this is super close. I'm really scared to see what Bama is with Jalen Milroe, maybe the possible starter, and if not, a guy who's never seen an SEC football snap. And so I think this game's real close. I give the edge to the home team, and so Bama wins this in a close one. UT 6-1.
Yeah, I kind of looked at it the same way. I do not think Alabama will be excited to play Tennessee this year.
I don't either.
Will Anderson said that they were scared last year. They're going to be scared this year too, especially if they watch Joe Milton warm up. Watching Joe Milton warm up is terrifying. Okay, so I'm at 5-2. You're at 6-1.
Correct.
Going into the Kentucky game, I've got to win.
Oh, I also have the win here.
Okay.
They own them. UT owns Kentucky. I use the same logic. They own them. Win.
Yeah. Next game against UConn, that's a win. You move on to 7-2.
Win for me as well. So you are 8-1 to my prediction.
Next game against Missouri. Tennessee ain't gonna lose to Missouri. And I know I could have filled out your prediction for you, by the way, because I think
I almost made it. For the record, I almost went with Britt and said A&M, looking ahead to Bama, but UT beat Bama last year. Georgia's the bigger game, which is why they don't overlook A&M. They beat them, and they overlook Missouri because of how they handled them last year, looking ahead to Georgia, and also remembering that if my prediction is correct and Tennessee's looking ahead to Georgia, they beat Georgia head-to-head, they're in the SEC championship. And so that's why I do have this loss to Missouri here. I think that it comes in a really bad time. You just played a cupcake. You then play, I think, going to be, once again, a improved Missouri team, but the Brady Cook scares me. They'll have enough in Columbia to beat Tennessee if Tennessee doesn't show up. I think that if I was going to predict a loss, it had to be this game or A&M. I just went a different side from Britt. I picked Missouri. Tennessee takes its second loss. They're 8-2.
Missouri is a team that Tennessee could have beat Missouri blindfolded last year. Missouri is a team that is banking way too much on, and I don't hate Missouri. They're banking way too much on almost beating Georgia last year. Like, that's not an accomplishment. To almost beat a team is a loss. And they're banking too much on recruiting, and they're not looking enough into who their coach is. Like, if you want to talk about recruiting, if you talk to me in 2015 and 16, Tennessee was going to win a national championship. But Butch Jones had something else to say about that. Just because you have talent doesn't mean you're good. I mean, look at A&M last year. They had the 4th most talent in the nation. They sucked.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is a very good point. Also, Britt's Bluetooth name in his car in 2016 was, or 2015 actually, to correct myself, was Go Vols 15-0. Is that correct? Yeah. And so I just said that to say he wasn't just saying stupid stuff. He really did believe that they had a chance to win a national championship.
I had a bumper sticker that had national championships all the years, and it said 2016 at the bottom.
That's crazy. Britt
on
was
my
out here
board.
believing, and I'm not saying I necessarily blame him if my team had started out 5-0 and God caressed the hands of Josh Dobbs to Juwan Jennings in Georgia. Or was that game in Georgia? Or was
Mhm.
it at Georgia? I probably would have been a believer too. So I'm not faulting him. I just think that this game is in a bad spot overall. I think Missouri's going to have an elite defense. And their offense, your offense plays better at home statistically. So I think that their offense probably plays better than they actually are throughout the season. And that's why they get the better of them here.
Okay, moving on. We've got the same record, right?
We do 8-2.
Moving on against Georgia, you lose.
I agree. You lose. You're 8-3.
You lose. This has really been a consistency exercise for me. Like I had Auburn beating Vanderbilt. I've been saying I like Auburn. I've been saying Florida stinks. I have both of us beating Florida. I've been saying Georgia's going to win 15 games this year. I think they're going to.
Yeah.
And then in week 12 against Vanderbilt, I've got a win for a final score of 9-3.
I also obviously have a win against Vanderbilt as I predicted us to lose in Vanderbilt's schedule. So I also have the 9-3 mark for Tennessee. I will say this. There is one thing that I thought would come up, I would be asked about when giving both schedules before we kind of give our recaps. Is that how do I have Vanderbilt beating Missouri, but not Tennessee, but then have Tennessee beating Vanderbilt? What I said would be rather quite easily, and I didn't think it would be a close game. I think that as much as I like to, as people say that like, oh, like the bye week is overrated, and maybe it is, and the whatever, like the schedule placement is overrated. Like coaches always have their guys ready. They just don't. Sometimes you just don't. And so I think that when Vanderbilt comes in 5-0, if they did to Missouri, and Missouri coming to town, I think that you beat them off of pure momentum and insane circumstances. And I think that the meter leans towards Vanderbilt, where in UT's case of the schedule, all the metrics are leaning against Tennessee to Missouri. Of it's an away game. The offense is once again statistically going to play worse, which is Tennessee's strength. I don't know how far of a step their defense takes. Missouri has an elite defense. They did almost knock off Georgia last year at home. They do just play a lot better at home. It's to me, man. I know it sounds funny to put the schedule like that, but ultimately that's kind of how it's happened. I mean, shoot, Vanderbilt beat Florida last year, and who's seen it coming? Nobody. And Tennessee played what I would almost argue a closer game with Florida than Vanderbilt did. And so it's just like, man, even though I do have one team losing and one team better, I'm not saying Vanderbilt's a better football team or set up more for success this year than Tennessee. I just wanted to get that on the record.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And teams that are in like the middle, that are not in the upper tier of the conference, like Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, South Carolina, those teams, Ole Miss, it's like they're going to win 6 or 7 games, and it could be against anybody. Those 6 wins could be against, look at South Carolina, like a top 5 Georgia team. They had no business beating. And then they could turn around and lose to Kentucky the next week.
Yeah,
So I see
agree.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And I will say that if Vanderbilt was to drop a game to Wake Forest or Kentucky, they don't beat Missouri for sure. It would have to be all the momentum, all the believing that you're who you thought you were throughout fall camp. It would have to be everything. What they always said about James Franklin, he made the guys in the locker room believe they could win every game. And they have to believe that going into the Missouri game, or they will get out talented and beat by Missouri. So I just wanted to get that on the record too. But I do think 9-3 for Tennessee is a great year. I think you provide something that you haven't provided in quite some time, and this thing called stability. 10-2 last year, 11-2 after your bowl, 9-3 this year. Let's say they win their bowl, 10-3. You're going to come off back-to-back double-digit wins. Jeremy Pruitt was never close to that. Derek Dooley was never close to that. Butch Jones, kinda, I guess, close to that. But relatively, throughout our life, They've never been close to that. So to do it would just show, not only it would remove any doubt for me if Heupel's the guy. If you have any doubt, I don't know if really anyone does, but if you have any doubt, I think it would put it to bed. And you're setting up the Nico reign of 4 years of the second best quarterback in his class. So yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna
that's what I
say
say.
it's a great year if you throw in that Nico gets good reps. With the bowl win, I mean, Josh Heupel will have won 21 games in 2 years.
Yeah,
It's pretty good. It's
I
pretty
agree.
good.
I agree. Well,
But
man,
so
look,
if
go ahead.
our last point here, so if say Vanderbilt hits the floor, 4-8, 3-9, why does that happen?
That happens because of two reasons, I think. One, the secondary faces injuries. Um, Vanderbilt's secondary is going to be young. I think the boundary corner is probably going to be graduate senior B.J. Anderson with redshirt freshman Trudell Berry backing him up. I originally said I thought Berry would be the starter, but it's been a lot of back and forth. Regardless, if one of those guys get hurt, your backup is a guy who's never seen an SEC snap and is young. We just converted the other day, we converted a wide receiver in fall camp to cornerback named Davion Walker. We converted him to corner. Our corners are not deep. If we face injuries in the secondary, we'll be just as bad in the secondary as last year. We'll be the 121st defense, 125th passing defense last year. We'll be that bad. So, yeah, secondary. My next thing would be, God forbid, that AJ Swan gets hurt, because he has a way better arm than Ken Seals. He can just stretch the field more. And I think that would be your two. I think that's how you hit the floor. Who we're looking to as the franchise quarterback at this point. I mean, AJ Swan, he better be good because he's your hope. If he gets hurt, yeah, it's not good. We're down bad if he gets hurt and the secondary gets hurt. That's how we see the floor for us. Secondary quarterback. For
For
UT.
Tennessee, if things don't go well, if the floor is hit, I've got 3 words, no explanation. Joe no go.
Joe no go.
That's it.
Can I throw in one too for Tennessee?
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw in offensive line injuries. If Tennessee has a guy or two get banged up on the offensive line, especially if you start saying two, I think that they have some young guys that could step in, but I just don't know how much they produce. And O-line, I mean, I think we all know is pretty dang important. So
Yeah,
I would throw that in.
I mean, Cooper Mays is he had a procedure last week. I've heard he could be back by week 1. I've heard he could be back by week 3 against Florida. If he doesn't play this year, that knocks at least 1 win off the schedule.
Okay.
At least 1.
I like the honesty.
Cooper Mays is a guy you have to have. But great episode, very knowledgeable.
I agree. Can we hit one more thing? Now, we went negative, but let's go positive. I'm 12 days away from football. I'm thinking positive. We're preseason thought, Britt. This is positive, Britt and Joseph. If everything goes right, what happens? If everything goes right, I mean, for Vanderbilt, it's the young secondary steps up and play really beyond themselves. You have a true freshman in Martell High who's going to have to play great. You're going to have a redshirt freshman in Trudell Berry who's going to have to play great. The other side of the ball, you're going to have an experienced O-line, but they're going to have to take another step forward for Vanderbilt. And so I think that's how Vanderbilt gets to their 8-4 ceiling for me, or 9-3 ceiling for Britt. And for Tennessee, I think they get to the ceiling by Joe Milton being who, at the biggest freak that he is, at being 6'6", 230 pounds. If he does what he can do and slings the football everywhere and is accurate, maybe UT ceiling's even better than what I said. Maybe it's closer to what Britt said. And I think that's how you get there for Tennessee, and the defense takes a step forward that is bigger than what I'm expecting. I think that's what my ceiling. That's how you get there for both teams.
For me, just touching on Vanderbilt, I think if Will Shepherd plays as good as he can, and if AJ Swan can get in the ball, I think Vanderbilt will be good. I think if you can give him some time to throw the ball, and like you kind of touched on, confidence. If confidence can be established early and continued on through 5, 6 games, I think that's a good formula for Vanderbilt. And for Tennessee, I mean,
I agree.
if Cooper Mays is what he was last year, and if Joe Milton is 75% of what Hendon Hooker was, I think Tennessee wins 11 games. I think you beat Georgia at home.
Okay, so you like Georgia win over Bama.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So I mean, look, there it is. Okay, there's the season predictions. We're 2 weeks away from going back to 2 podcasts a week. I'm excited. Britt's excited. I think everyone's excited for football. Man, here we are. We're this podcast and one more away from football. I love the season predictions. Shout out Britt. He did a great job on UTs. We put in the work to make sure we at least had our ducks in a row to give you what we think are competitive schedule season predictions.
Yeah. Good job to you. I'm very
Thank you, sir.
excited. A lot of stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
Excited for the season.
I agree. Britt, I think you touched on this earlier, but just to add, I would like to circle mine too. The circle game of the season for Tennessee, you said is South Carolina. That's the game you have circled. I'm going to this game for one. I'm going to this game for one reason. I think it's the circle game for Vanderbilt. Give me Wake Forest. I think you got to go there and win to develop that confidence to be 4-0, to even have a chance to start out 6-0. It's going to start at Wake Forest. I have it circled. That's going to be really important.
I like it.
Nonetheless,
my heart is clear.
Joseph West and Britt Dillard here on the Mastermind Where's the Line podcast, episode number 91. And we hope you guys simply
have a great one.
Have a blessed day and a week. God, I love that.
Let's go. Goodbye.
God, I'm going to run through a brick wall for Vanderbilt right now.